Hey there, everybody. It is Irene Lyon. Welcome to this long-form live stream. If you're watching this right now, you're probably watching the recording, just because when we do a live stream on Facebook, it takes a while for people to get in and to be watching and to see me. So if you're on Facebook watching us, thank you for pressing play after the fact. If you are on YouTube, thank you for also pressing play, and thank you for being on my YouTube channel. And I have questions today. I'm going to be getting into them soon. But if you're new to me, I'm Irene Lyon, and this is my channel. This is, if you're on Facebook, my Facebook page. If you're on YouTube, my YouTube channel. And my expertise, my world is all around the nervous system. It's all around healing trauma via the nervous system and also via the somatic, the body, through the body lens. Also, we talk a lot about neuroplasticity and how to rewire and change things from not just the inside out, but the outside in. That is a very important distinction in the work that myself and my colleagues do, the work I do in my group programs online and also in person. I'm no longer in private practice, for those of you wondering. I was for many, many years, gosh, at least 10 or so years. And all of my work now is either online in group or in group workshops that we run through my company. It's a workshop called Up and Down. If you haven't checked it out, be sure to do so. We do lots of good stuff over there and in those workshops. But I see I've got some people online. Let me know where you're from. I'd love to know. There's a comment board, so head over and let me know where you are from. Hey there, Crystal. Hey there, Kim. Don't be shy. I know I can't see you, so it's a safe way to say hello is to go into the comments there. I'm just going to make sure everything is sounding good and looking good. Someone give me a thumbs up just so that I know that all is working properly today. And I've got questions, and what we're going to find out, if you're new to these calls, you will know, you won't know, I should say, that a lot of the answers that I give you are all related to the same thing. And when we're working with the nervous system, when we're working with healing trauma and chronic illness and mental illness, at least from my perspective, it's all about building a robust capacity within the nervous system, within our ability to find more what we call regulation within the nervous system. And the nervous system, just for a quick little overview, it impacts everything in our system. So for those of you, again, I'll just do a real quick overview. When I say nervous system, I mean autonomic nervous system, not the central nervous system. So the central nervous system is the brain. So say hello to your brain today if you haven't yet. Brain and the spinal cord. Whereas the autonomic nervous system is part of our peripheral nervous system, which means the periphery, so outwards from the brain and spinal cord. And the autonomic nervous system governs, well, it governs a lot of things, but there's two main things that it governs. One, it governs our heart rate, our immune system, our endocrine system, which is our hormonal system. Got some questions about hormones today, so I wanted to add that in. Our cardiovascular system, our blood perfusion to our muscles and to our organs, our digestive system, our reproductive system, our urinary system, our lymphatic system, all systems within this body of ours, our autonomic nervous system has a say in how they work. It's kind of like the conductor of an orchestra. For an orchestra to sound good with all of the instruments, there needs to be, even though all those instruments, you know, percussion, strings, etc., they all know how to sing and play music on their own, but for it to become harmony, for it to become a song that makes sense, there needs to be a conductor at the front conducting all of the musicians. Otherwise, it's chaos. And so maybe you can see how this analogy plays into our system. When our autonomic nervous system is not in good working order, when it is in chaos, when it is not in good flow, it touches all these systems and it puts these systems basically into what we call dysregulation. So the nervous system is what I work with. It's what I'm going to talk about, but it also means all the systems that connect to that autonomic nervous system. So that's one branch of this autonomic nervous system. The other responsibility of the autonomic nervous system is our survival physiology. It's what keeps us safe when we are under real danger versus what we might consider perceived danger, or the thought of danger, or the thought of stress. And we know through just being humans that we can actually put ourselves into a stress response without there being anything physically around us that is attacking us. And this is something that is very important to understand, not just now. I mean, right now we're in a very interesting time in humanity. There is a lot of chaos going on in the world. There's been a lot of chaos for a long time, so let's be real with that. But it's amped up a little bit more for a few reasons. And we have to also understand that if we have underlying stress in our system, we have unhealed, unprocessed traumatic stress and traumatic memories and events in our nervous system and in all these organ systems, because the stress and the dysregulation can also be in the organ systems. When we have that, something that is stressful, something that is perceived as a threat, will make our underlying dysregulation more intense. It'll make it more intense. I can't say it any more better than that. I talk about this at length in one of my three-part healing trauma video series. If you're brand new here, or even if you're not brand new and you've never taken part in that 3-part healing trauma video series, it's free. It's on my site. We'll link it up here or in the show more section if you're on YouTube. Please watch that, because the first video really explains how one with unresolved trauma and stress will end up a little more chaotic in their system when a new stress comes in versus someone who is more regulated in their system and able to manage and put into control those survival stresses. So this is a very little quick intro just for those who are brand new, to give you context into the fact that I am working in my work with my clients and students and teaching you in these educational videos around the nervous system, specifically the autonomic nervous system, how it governs all of our organ systems, and how it also is responsible for keeping us safe and protected under times of real threat. And the other thing I didn't put in there is that the autonomic nervous system, another branch of it is responsible for engaging, for being social, for being able to be creative, even though the higher brains offer that to us. When our nervous system is in good regulation, our ability to turn our higher brain on is more heightened. It's more able to learn. It's more able to connect to the environment, to people. The hallmark of trauma and trauma being stuck in the system is our systems being in overwhelm. And we want to get out of that overwhelm so our systems can heal. So I'm just going to go to the comment box. Thanks for checking this out today. We have at this point, we have about 61 people here. We've just been going for about 10 minutes. I wanted to do a little bit of an intro. If you're brand new here, thanks for tuning in for the first time. If you're an old pro, thanks for coming back and hanging out with me on this online TV that we have. I'm just going to see where people are from. We have Finland in the house. We have got Chicago, Italia, Denmark, Holland, another Italy, and that's what I've got so far. So again, if you have not yet checked out my more packaged online videos where I teach with slides and graphs, please get into those after this live stream so that you can maybe get some paper, take some notes. You can pause the video, you can let that learning sink in. What I have found in all of the years I've been doing this, education taps into the body too, especially with this learning. When you start to learn about the nervous system, it's almost like you can't turn that faucet off, because you start to see things in a very different way in our environment, in our society. My students will say time and time again, they actually have more compassion for people in the world. They have more empathy for things around them. They're able to have, in some ways, better self-talk towards their own systems because they understand why the system is freaking out. They understand why they're having these memories come up. They understand why, when there's an added stress in the environment, they're feeling stress when they probably shouldn't be. And so the more we have education on board, the easier it is to navigate how our nervous system responds to threat, unstored or unhealed and stored up trauma, and also just our environment. Also know that education is not enough. We have to do the practices. We have to work with our body the way we would, I often say, the way we would want to learn a second language as an adult. I did a video on this earlier this year. We'll post it below. But if you think about this, and all these questions mostly are related to how to heal. And so we have to understand it has to be education, but it has to be practice as well. And of course, I've got lots of ways that you can do that with me. I have, again, free resources on my site with some audio recordings and also some programs, some online courses that you can take to get into the physiology, to do the practices, which I really recommend if you haven't started yet. So Crystal is online with me right now. Everyone say hi to Crystal. Hey, Crystal. Give her a smile and a clap for posting all these links and being my little person in the back putting things in. She'll link up one of my online programs. It's called the 21-Day Nervous System Tune-Up. I highly recommend checking that out at the end of this if you know you want to do the work. And I've been seeing comments from my students over the last few weeks amongst this crisis we're in, and many of them are saying, my God, if I hadn't have had this learning 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 1 year ago, I'd be a mess. And they're amazed at how okay they feel, how regulated they feel. They know how to connect to their internal and external resources to stay calm, to focus on what is working, to realize if they are following the precautions that our government is telling us, and health authorities, I should say, they're actually realizing that they are safe, that they are okay. And when the old fears are going to come up, and old fears will come up right now, even when we have a little bit of regulation on board right now, I think the process that we're in it's almost poking all of us in a real big way to resolve all the stress and trauma that's in our system. Because as a society, as a humanity, as a planet, we can't keep storing all the illness and sickness in our systems. It has to get out. And so I think we're being offered a really important opportunity right now to pause, reflect, work with our own systems, and clean them out as much as possible from a nervous system and trauma perspective. I'm catching my words there. So that we're not impacted in the same way that a lot of people are awfulizing and predicting. No doubt there's a lot of real economic stress. Of course, people are perishing due to the virus that is out right now. We also have to understand that people perish and die all the time of various things, many things. And while this is a hard thing to see, it's also an important lesson, I think, for all of us to slow down, take care of ourselves, and work with our nervous systems. So with that said, I'm just going to have a little bit of tea here before I start talking a bit more. Hey there, Emma from the UK. Hey there, Jenny. And I'm going to start with the questions that I had submitted already. So bear with me as I get into them. Hey, Sabrina from the UK. I already said that. Wisconsin's in the house. Hello, Kim. Crystal Beach, Ontario. That's a pretty name. All right, Edinburgh, Spain. Okay, I'm going to get into the first question. So this is from Abigail, and this was sent via email. So thanks for popping this in. She writes, I'm going to read it out loud just to put context here. You are helping me and my therapist, oh, that's great, learn so much. Do you believe in emotional ages? Emotional ages. I'm exploring the sensations that come up in my body as I think about certain events, feelings, and past culminating with sexual trauma. Flashbacks scare me less now. That's awesome, actually, Abigail, that I want to change that script. There's something about flashbacks that has a real negative connotation. They're memories. Flashbacks are cognitive and somatic memories that come to the surface when we start to get into our somatic system. They also can come up when we're not connected to our somatic system, to our body system. And that's when they are a little scarier because, and I'll give you context here, when we have had something like, it doesn't have to just be sexual trauma. It could be physical trauma, emotional trauma, verbal abuse, car accident, mom not coming home when she said she would when we were little and feeling scared that we were abandoned. I mean, there's so many things here. So it's not just for sexual trauma here, but this is the context. When we've had something overwhelming occur to us, we will disconnect from our body because it's too much to feel. And our system registers that bad thing that occurred to us. And so part of healing our system is, believe it or not, touching back into those memories that occurred when that bad, scary thing occurred, but touching into them with more context, more a body awareness, more ability to connect to the here and now, and being less overwhelmed. Traumatic stress traps and sticks to our system like Velcro when we cannot handle the overwhelm and the activation and the dissociation. So part of the healing in this work is actually being able to feel and touch into and even taste and experience the intensity when that traumatic event happened, but navigate it. And I like to often say to my students, like, it's like surfing the tsunami wave, but knowing that we know how to swim, knowing that we know how to paddle to get out of that wave, and knowing that if we stay on that wave, we will eventually come to shore and then it'll dissolve and integrate. Working with past events is very much like that. So that's great that the memories, as you say, the flashbacks don't scare you as much. And that just means you have more capacity and more ability to be with those memories, which is super important. And I think that was just something that you were sharing. You also were sharing another incident that doesn't have a question to it. So I'm going to move on to the next question. And if you have a follow-up with that, we'll reach out to you and get in touch. So the next one is Pavlina. Hope I pronounced that right. And this is again from email. You have a question about dissociation. So this is a question about dissociation. So you say, it seems I often go into dissociation and overwhelm so much so that it has become familiar. I started recognizing it since starting with working with the body. I'm struggling figuring out when I'm dissociating or in dissociation. How do I recognize and come back to the body? How do I know? So Pavlina, this is a beautiful question to follow up with the last one from Abigail. And so the first thing is that the fact that you are even aware of this is the first step. Most people, at least up until now, and this is again just the time in history where humanity is in, there are many people who have lived a life and died not even realizing that they were dissociated, in overwhelm and in dysregulation forever. And fortunately, that has been many people. It's just been the reality. So the fact that you're even aware of it is the number one first step. The second thing is working with the body. So when you say, how do I recognize and come back to the body? The key is actually working with the body when we're not in that overwhelm, when we're not going into that dissociation. And I'll put some context into this. And again, I'm really like talking macro, so you all see that this is not just individual, it's global, it's macro. But when we are, as humans, we tend to fix things when they go really bad, right? It isn't until someone's cholesterol is really high that they start to watch their diet. It isn't until someone realizes that they've gained an excess of weight that isn't healthy that they realize they should probably check out why that's occurring, whether it's due to food or lack of activity or emotional or trauma factors. We typically don't fix something on our house until it busts and breaks down, and then we have to call in the emergency crew to fix something. We have become, as humans, or we are terrible at prevention and keeping up with things until things go wrong. So part of working with the body and working with this dissociation that you talk about in this overwhelm is to practice being in your body when you're not overwhelmed, when things are a little bit better, when things aren't as intense. And it's important to realize when those moments are, and then actively connect to the body. And if you haven't done any of my practices online or any of my programs, get into them, even the free ones, to be guided through how to touch into the body, how to sense the body. So that's the first thing. And then the next thing is when we go into some form of dissociation, whether it's more cognitive or physical, it comes usually with this disconnection from the here and now. We kind of go into, in some ways, a strange dream state where we're awake and we're alive, but we're not really conscious and aware of what's going on. So it's important, again, to slow things down and to notice. And this takes time. This is not something that we'll get in one go. This will take weeks and months, and even for some of us, years. If you have to understand, if we were born into stress and overwhelm and traumatic environments, this is something that is going to take time. I have to be very clear. And it changes when we keep up to it, just like learning a second language as an adult. We have to practice. So being able to stay oriented and connected to the environment is key. And I have two videos. One is longer, one is shorter, on what orienting is, Pavlina. So make sure you check those out. And so if you're starting to feel that you're getting lost in something, or you feel overwhelmed, you have to find out in your body, where is that coming up? Is it in something that you hold in your throat? Is it something that you do with your hands? Is it a tension that you have in your jaw? Is it a memory of something that triggers it? But to really start to be your own private investigator and listen to when is the moment when something in your bodily sensation trips the switch that leads you into overwhelm, that can then lead you into dissociating and disconnecting from the body. So it's like this chain of events. And so if we think about a chain of events like a machine, an engineer, a machine that has all these bells and whistles, at what point along that machine chain is the system starting to trip up into more survival physiology? And so you say you're still struggling to figure it out. That's normal. And I really recommend getting into some actual practices. I call them in my work neurosensory exercises. So whether it's via me, trying out some of my audio resources, programs, or working with somatic therapists to work on tracking these sensations, that's what you're going to want to do. All right, I'm going to have a little more water here. It's actually tea, but same thing. It's liquid. Okay, next one from email. This is from Alexandra. Thanks for asking this question. So the question is, I'm a little bit desperate. I work so hard on feeling better with my freeze response. So again, just to review, freeze is part of that spectrum of our survival responses. There's fight, so fighting, wanting to fight when we're in a stressful environment. Flee or flight is to get away, run, I don't want to see it, I'm out of here. And then freeze happens when we can't fight, when we can't flee, and we get stuck and we shut down and we kind of go into like a frozen, it's that deer in the headlights kind of concept. Okay, so you're working on being better with this response. But the thing is, it changes really slowly. So yes, it does, Alexandra. The hardest thing for me is that my partner suffers from a lot of ups and downs. Yesterday, I tried something. I got into a freeze response and ran away. I ran very fast and imagined a bear would follow me. After I was safe and I felt a release. So a little heat, and of course the breath changed, but afterwards I started fighting hard with my partner out of nothing. I said to him, I'm not happy anymore, that I want to leave. I said to him, you don't respect me and I need distance. Then I came home and I cried so hard I didn't trust him anymore, and I was ready to leave immediately. So what do you think? How can I deal with that? I know my father shamed me a lot, but how can I stop? How can it stop to repeat this pattern? So I'm going to break this down into two pieces, Alex. And the one is that you actually did a really smart thing by feeling that freeze, and rather than getting trapped into it, you summoned the fight and flight response and you ran. And again, you said you imagined a bear was chasing you. And if anybody knows Peter Levine's work, this is the work of somatic experiencing. It's one of the three things, actually one of the 5 things I'm trained in. And Crystal can pop up a video I did on the history of Peter Levine. It's from a few years ago, where I talk about how he discovered this work through working with a client in the late 60s in Berkeley who had all these symptoms, what we would now call fibromyalgia, PTSD, horrific menstrual cramps, fear, anxiety, and it was triggered by being in grad school. But he realized that all the fear was being trapped in her system because of an old tonsillectomy when she was 5, where she had to be pinned down during the surgery. And so she had all this need to fight and run. And Peter had a stroke of, he says it was a gift from the gods, dropped in and gave him an image of a tiger. And he said, run, Nancy, run like you're being chased by a tiger. And her system went into this automatic running response, and it helped really shift the really the vice grip that early trauma had on her system. Now, of course, and I'm saying this so there's context, but they didn't just go into the session and he didn't just say, okay, I want you to run. There had to be a buildup. She had to be in her body. She had to have the memory of that tonsillectomy come up spontaneously. He didn't pry at her to find it. It was her own intelligence showing him that image, that memory, and then a good somatic practitioner will use their intuition to guide that person to get that stuff out. So all that to say, I wanted to just give context to what you did, and it was smart that you did that. And the 2 videos I did on this, there's 2, Crystal. One is I'm sitting on my balcony where I'm talking about him, and another is I'm in Berkeley, actually on the street corner where Peter did that first ever session. So it's kind of fun because I'm actually where it all happened back in the late 60s. So you said I felt safe, and there was a release and your breath changed. So again, that shifted your physiology, which is super good. Now, the fact that you started to fight with your partner makes sense, because with the flight comes the fight, right? And when we're coming out of being shut down for so long, our system is going to want to fucking fight. Pardon my language, but it wants to have a fight. And this is where we get into relationship dynamics, because, and I'm going to make an assumption, if that partner is safe, if that partner is someone that we like, that we love, that we want to spend our lives with, it's very, very important that they understand this physiology, what is happening, because if they do not, they are going to be triggered into thinking that that fight is because of them. Of course, I'm making an assumption. If the partnership is not healthy, if there's miscommunication, if the 2 people are looking in opposite directions, and if one, and this is so darn common and it's unfortunate, but if the partner has no interest in healing at this level, if they don't believe it exists, if they work in a very linear way, not seeing these dimensions of the physical system and our emotions and our survival and our nervous system and even our soul and spirit, 2 people living that have different views, there's always going to be friction. There's always going to be clashing, and it's like putting oil and vinegar together. They just don't mix. No matter how much you shake them up and try to shake them up, they don't mix. And so it's important when we do this work to have these conversations with our partners, those that we live with in our immediate area, so that they know this isn't about me, this is about that trauma you just released and worked with. So that's a question, Alex, that you have to figure out. You need to work with, whether that's with talking or getting a couples therapist, someone who can give you that help, that insight. So it makes sense that you cried, that you didn't trust anymore, but is that trust because of the relationship, or is it because there wasn't enough preparation so that they knew what was happening? You said that you had a father that shamed you a lot. So again, there's a piece there where if our primary caregivers were not kind to us, if they toxically shamed us, and there is a difference between healthy shame and toxic shame. I did a video on this a year and a half ago, on the difference between healthy shame and toxic shame. So if we had this toxic shame from a primary caregiver, we will have an imprint on our system that basically feels as though we are not good enough, that we should be in some ways punished, that we don't deserve, right? And these are dynamics that if we know we grew up with these, we have to have those conversations with our significant other, because this will come up. And even when you have two people looking in the same direction who are both wanting to work on their systems, their emotions, their traumas, their physical systems, and the past traumatic stressors that we're both bringing into the relationship, even then it will be challenging because buttons will be pushed. And that's where the two people have to have a very good practice and ability to ground, to come back to the here and now, to call, pause, time out, like let's walk away, let's come back. But it all comes down to whether or not the two people really want to stay together and be together, and if it's a good fit. And only you will know that. It's not something that I can advise on, not of course in this forum, but even if I had a client, it comes down to those two people and their relationship dynamic. So I'm just going to go into the comments here to see how everyone's doing. Hey there, hey there. I'm going to go to a question that Sandra had in the Facebook comments. So she wrote, now that I'm working on regulating my nervous system, I'm finding I'm yawning more, and I realize I didn't yawn much before. Is this a kind of thaw that's going on? It definitely can. It's also a sign that the system is knowing how to go into relaxation. So part of our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, there's the sympathetic nervous system, that's the fight, flight, and then there's the parasympathetic, which has a few more branches than just fight, flight, or I should say freeze. So I'm going to correct myself there. Autonomic nervous system has sympathetic nervous system. That's the fight, flight. That's the get up and go. That's the protect kind of thing. And then the freeze is the shutdown. And part of the parasympathetic is also rest, digest. They are different than the freeze responses. Check out my video on the polyvagal theory explained. I get into that in detail on that one, so we'll link that below too. So when we go into more regulation, we bring on more of the real true rest digest of the parasympathetic, as opposed to the deep shutdown of the parasympathetic. And when that occurs, our body is allowed to let down. It's allowed to rest. So that's what that means, basically. So I hope that answers the question. Hey there, Dan. I will have to see if I got your question. I'll let you know. I'm not sure if I did. So Crystal, Dan wasn't able to ask a question from the 21-day call we did yesterday, so if I can get to it, I will. But if not, we'll get back to you via email or in the Facebook group if you haven't posted in the Facebook group for the 21-day Dan. So we'll get to you. I did see that. Okay, Miyoki has, do you have any advice on how to get out of a panic attack? A lot of what I've been talking about. So it comes down to understanding what panic is. I've done some other videos on what anxiety really is, so be sure to check those out. But Panic is, in a very quick nutshell, it is the system going into survival stress, or it's the system feeling the existing underlying survival stress, but in a big way. It's the sympathetic system going into fight, flight. And so in those instances, it depends on the resources you have, how practiced you are at staying connected. We need to stay connected to the ground under us, the environment around us, contain the system, but depending on the history, Miyoki, I can't tell you what to do. And this is where, again, I cannot stress enough, learning the skills and the exercises are very important, because they're not, and I'll give you an example. If someone's having a panic attack, I cannot say ethically, so what I'm about to say, do not follow this, everyone. I want you to breathe. I want you to see the world outside. I want you to squeeze your arms, and I want you to feel the ground under you. That is not going to work for everyone, because it depends on why that is there, why the survival stress is coming up. For some people, doing this is going to freak the heck out of them. It's going to feel claustrophobic. For others, this is going to feel amazing, and it's going to drop the survival stress down. For some people, they need to come out of the body and resource to the environment. For others, that is absolutely terrifying. Some need to resource to a cup of tea. Some need to do other things, like working with breath, but in a way that isn't to get out of the panic attack, but to contain it. I did a video on breath the other day, Miyoki, so be sure to check that out. So again, those are my pieces of advice, but it depends on why it's there. And then to make things even more complicated, sorry, but I will, what might work for you one day may not work the next day or the next day. And that is because our system is fluid, it shifts, it changes. And so that's where we have to learn how to listen to the signals in our system and know what the body wants. It's so, so, so important. So that is my little bit of advice on panic attacks. I have another video. You guys are going to have your homework cut out for you if you follow all these videos. There's another one I have. One is called, again, What Anxiety Really Is. It's a little older. It's a video. And then the other one is 3 things to know when healing anxiety. But they all kind of funnel into the same advice. Knowing your system, listening to your system, and being able to be an apprentice of your nervous system is super, super duper duper key. Okay, I'm going to get back to the questions that were submitted before. So this is from Lucy. And this is from our Healthy Nervous System Revolution Facebook group, which is not this Facebook page, FYI. It's a private group that we have. And we post articles. There's a little more discussion in there. My team is in there moderating and answering questions. I was just about to say asking questions. They don't ask questions, they answer your questions. So if you haven't checked that out, be sure to join. We can pop that link also into the notes below here. So Lucy writes, I was already struggling and stuck in survival stress when the pandemic hit. So pandemic meaning, again, if I'll date this, but right now we have a very strong strain of coronavirus moving around the world, and it's creating a lot of chaos, not just within people, but in our entire structure of global society. So it's shaken things up a little bit. So that's what you were talking about. I'm pretty new to the idea that I have unresolved trauma. You're not the only one, Lucy, so all good. And I'm just beginning to work with it. That's awesome. So, but now I'm really struggling. I'm in the UK and we're into our 2nd week of lockdown. So I live by myself and I feel trapped at home with all these awful sensations that I can't distract or get away from. Walking in the morning is simply awful as I'm straight into high anxiety. I can hardly breathe. Or waking in the morning. I am at a point where meditation and relaxation are intolerable. How do I even begin to help myself? I can't live like this. No, we can't live like this. And so again, I don't know how different countries are handling this. I am not aware if you're allowed to go outside. Maybe someone can let me know. I know in New Zealand, I heard through the grapevine that people are, I'm not sure if they're being arrested if they go out, but it is not like that here in Canada. I don't even think it's like that completely in the United States. We can go outside, we can go get food. I am blessed to live somewhere where we have parks and a beach and walking paths. We are not in high density apartments where I am. So I guess the question that I have is, if it is allowed to go outside to get things, which I'm assuming it is because I don't know how people are getting food if they can't go out, let yourself go out if you can, and go out at times of day when it's less busy, whether it's in the evening or early in the morning. We need to have fresh air. We need to move our bodies. So again, if we do not have to be locked in our homes, and again, I don't know how people are getting food if they are in lockdown, try your best to get outside, to get some air, to get some movement. I really recommend that. The next thing is that you're right, trying to relax and trying to calm won't work if we have got underlying survival stress in our system. So my suggestion, first of all, if you haven't yet, is to download 2 of my resources on my site. One is a 15-minute neurosensory exercise. So Crystal will pop that up. It's a real simple thing. It's a 15-minute audio lesson where I guide you through basics of connecting to the body, but I never say relax. I never say take a deep breath. I never ask you to go into your thoughts and try to clean them out. I would never ask anyone to do that. So that's one of them. The other is called the 4 Simple Steps to Calm, I'm testing myself, overwhelming emotions and overwhelm and overwhelming emotions. So emotions and sensations that are just really overwhelming. And similar to the other one, it's just another variety of reconnecting to the ground, reconnecting to the space around us. So use those resources if you have not yet started one of my programs, because it'll give you some tools to connect to the reality of what you're feeling, as opposed to trying to make the emotions and sensations go away. The other thing with high levels of charge, which is basically what this is to let it out. So it might be that you have to scream, that you have to make sound. Maybe there's a growl, maybe there's a deep anger and aggression. Maybe you need to run on the spot and get some of this energy out, right? Maybe there needs to be some crazy dancing that you do, some stomping of your feet. I don't know what you need to do, but it is so important to feel right now. This is for everyone, by the way, not just Lucy. Feeling what is there and letting that express and come out. Exactly what I've been saying for the last 8 years, right? But now we're being really put to the test because we can't keep this stuff inside anymore. And so to find what it is that needs to come out, but also to ensure that you're doing this in a way that isn't overwhelming the system more. So that's why I want you to go to those audio lessons and practice staying connected to the ground, feeling, and again, it depends. It might be that you're doing this, feeling your breath. It might be that you are using resources like, warm tea, getting into the hot bath, something that can let the system be eased and soothed, but not forcing it to stop feeling what is being felt, because it won't work right now. And I think that's why this is occurring, is it's showing us that we can't keep hiding from what's inside. So the other thing is to know that you're not the only one feeling this. And so you're not in this alone. Many are feeling this. I have no doubt millions of people are sensing this. So know that the system wants to get this stuff out. It doesn't want to stay stuck. The other thing, and this is a little more outside of my scope, but I watched this a few nights ago, and we'll pop it up. It's about a 50-minute chat with an Aborigine, a woman, a grandmother, an elder, and she's being interviewed by someone about the importance of us staying grounded right now, about the importance of connecting, the importance of us connecting to Mother Earth, connecting to the earth, to the soil, to the ocean. Even if we don't have the ocean and trees in our room, to imagine it, to visualize it, to see it, to look at photos of forest and ocean and water and rivers, and really feel that in us. because we have to realize, and this is where we've gotten ourselves into trouble, we too are the nature. We are nature, right? I did a video on this or an article on this a little while ago. We can pop it up. It's all blending into one, you guys. But I did a video article on this. And when we realize that we also are nature, we can connect to it even when we're not in it, because we are it. And she talks about the importance of really grounding into that Mother Earth, into the nature, and also having trust, having faith that we will move through this, and it's happening for a really good reason. And she guides the audience through on this YouTube video on a little bit of a guided meditation. It's almost in some ways a little more on a soul level, connecting to these higher sources that are there to help and protect us. And I know not everyone will believe in that. Not everyone believes in spirit and soul. I do not from a religious point of view, but I do from a grander universal point of view. There is way more here than what we can see on Earth. And there are forces and energies that want to help us and want to calm us. But the way that works is we have to tap into it. So Crystal, if you're wondering where the heck that is, oh good, she already got it up there. It's really beautiful. I watched it the other night, and it even helped me ground and realize, yeah, we're gonna be okay. Not everybody will, but not everybody is okay in the world each year, right? And so it's called Grandmother Lore Aboriginal Prophecy. So she's also funny. She's not a hippie woo-woo lady. She is solid. She knows her stuff, and you can feel it in her intention. So use that as a resource to drop into your own goodness and your own earth nature. So again, Lucy and everyone here, this makes sense. Like I said at the beginning, when we have unresolved stuff, and I'm generalizing, but the bulk of society living in the Western world, we do, especially if we haven't been working at this level, you're going to be put to the test right now. And in my experience and from what I'm seeing, we cannot deny working at this level anymore. So the other emotions that a lot of us might be feeling right now are deep grief. And the grief isn't about the current moment necessarily. This is bringing up all the old shit from the past, all the times we weren't listened to, all the times we weren't allowed to be who we are, to cry, to scream, to dance, to create, to be artistic, to be humans. And it's going to test that. It's going to challenge that. And it's an opportunity to let that grief out and to not get wrapped and immersed in it so much that we disconnect. We have to stay connected to the here and now. That's like primary principle. When we're working with this stuff, we have to connect to the here and now while processing the old stuff. If we don't connect to the here and now, we run the risk of re-traumatizing ourselves and going deeper into shutdown, into more overwhelm. So really take care of yourself. Do as much as you can, if you can, to have some air. Oh, thanks, someone from New Zealand. In New Zealand, we're allowed to go out for essentials and exercise close to home. It's only those that continually keep breaking the rules, congregating the groups, that get charged by the police. Okay, so again, I don't know if that's the same in the British Commonwealth, but go outside and get some exercise, get some fresh air. It's spring here in the Northern Hemisphere. The birds are having a hoot. I watched a crow today picking up all these pieces of dead grass, and I stood and watched him or her for probably 2 minutes, getting these pieces of grass in its mouth. I've actually never watched a crow do that. And then I watched her fly up into the trees where he was creating their nest, because they're about to have their babies, right? And so connect to this nature. They're still doing things as they would each year. The cherry blossoms are out, the flowers are blooming. It's still cold here in Canada, but find ways to connect to the things in the world that are still going on like nothing has changed, because to them, nothing has changed. If anything, the animals are feeling a huge sigh of relief right now, because so much is actually calming down and slowing down. And I think that's really cool. Okay, I'm going to get to the next question here from Oz. This is from our Healthy Nervous System Facebook group. So I have, oh gosh, is this a second question? Just a second, you guys. Oh, okay. I have two questions that are virtually identical. So one is from Instagram and one is from our Facebook group. And it has to do with severe symptoms of what's called I'm going to get this right, stands for the abbreviation is PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So this is a thing for the ladies, but it is very important for the men to understand this. I think we've separated these things, and it's really important for both sexes to understand the reproductive troubles that each sex might have, so that we can have empathy and be with these people, if it's a partner or a child, a teenager, etc. So one of the questions is PMDD related to trauma and complex PTSD, and can it be healed by working with the nervous system? That's one. So the answer is yes, but I'll get into it. That's one question. And the other is, I have high irritability 2 weeks before my period and can react stronger than I would otherwise. These reactions come out of the blue, and I try to catch my first signs of irritability and occasionally manage. So that's great, as you're tracking when this starts to happen. If this happens with my kid, I have shame and guilt paralyzing me emotionally. It's always the same underlying feeling that explodes. Take care of yourself, take care of the PMS. This is too much for me to handle. Why do I always stretch myself? Any suggestions? So these two questions actually go together really well. So reproductive pains and disorders that are related to hormonal secretions in the female system. I'm going to quote from Peter Levine, again, one of my mentors, founder of Somatic Experiencing. One of his lines of work is working with something called syndromes, 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 or syndromal representation. I did a video on this recently called The Somatization of Symptoms. Crystal can pop it up. And so syndromes are these clusters of chronic pain, intensity, inflammation. It can be something like fibromyalgia, an anxiety disorder, depression, cystitis, which is where the bladder feels like it's being inflamed and we're constantly having to pee even though there's nothing there. And severe PMS is one of them. Gut troubles, IBS, Crohn's, autoimmune, Raynaud's, RSD, which is a highly severe pain disorder. So it all umbrellas under this syndromal representation that comes into the body. From Peter's understanding, from what I understand, and I've verified this with clients, he feels that this severe type of PMS and irritability is what he calls, and I believe, again, a reproductive migraine. A reproductive migraine. And anybody that's had a migraine headache knows it isn't just tension in the head. It comes with this, it's like an onslaught of intense sensations, feelings. The system is just going chaotic. There's dizziness, there's nausea, maybe vomiting, there's pain, there's this inability to focus. It's really this, it's like a chaos and a dissociation at the same time. So imagine if that was happening in the hormonal system and in the reproductive organs. It's intense. We know, based on the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, I talked about this in a SoundCloud episode I did years ago, but this is the research that really showed us that when we have early unresolved trauma, adversity, stress, it will create some form of syndromal, typically, representation, chronic illness, mental illness, addiction, cancers, heart disease later in life. It's a long, long list that this study showed. It shows connection with early traumatic stress not being resolved and illness later in life. So there's this situation where our nervous system, which I talked about at the very beginning, our sympathetic fight flight is turned on, and then our parasympathetic shutdown is on, and they're like competing against each other. They're like frictioning like a machine that's ungreased and chaotic and isn't working. I used the example at the beginning about the orchestra, the symphony, and the conductor and all the musical pieces, right? You've got the strings and you've got the percussion and you've got the flutes, and I'm sure I'm missing something. But when there is dysregulation in that autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, the fight, flight, and freeze, are having basically a fist fight with each other. One is trying to go fast and the other is trying to slow the other one down. And it creates chaos in the system. And this is what creates these severe disruptions in the hormones, severe disruption in the flow, literally, of the way the reproductive organs work. It limits how our blood pressure, our capillaries perfuse. It limits our ability for all of our lymphatics to pump properly, which then stops this natural detox and flow that a female system goes through each month, usually. So there's this fist fight, if you will, with I'm having this image right now of two boxers in the boxing ring fighting, and they keep fighting even though I forget the name of the person in the boxing ring, but the guy that's there breaking them up isn't breaking them up. They're like covering them and hiding them, but underneath that hiding, they're still fighting, right? And so there's this freeze, this shutdown, but the dysregulation is happening because the fight and flight is still on. So yes, this is related to complex PTSD, and yes, this is related to a dysregulated nervous system. I've experienced that when we get our regulation back, again, which happens through working with the somatic system, working with these survival stresses, learning about them more, this starts to heal, this starts to change. Even when someone has tried all the diets, all the hormone supplements, everything, we'll still see these symptoms come up and these syndromes come up because that underlying root cause is still fighting it out. So the other thing, Oz, with your question is that you say you're wanting to say, take care of yourself. Why do I always stretch myself? This goes back to early childhood. And again, I'm generalizing, but typically when we have had early traumatic environments where, and again, I'm just going to generalize, where parents were not around, parents had no clue how to attend to our immature emotions, which is what a child is an immature animal. If we don't have a solid, secure, regulated, calm, and safe caregiver or caregivers, or the caregivers, I mentioned this a second ago with the relationship question, if the two caregivers are looking in two different directions and they don't have consistency with the kiddo, that creates a high level of stress in the child, infant, teenager. That kid will shift their way of being. They will develop a personality, this is where personality comes from, that will try to help the situation. The kid will try to be the parent. If there are siblings that need to be cared for and protected, they will try to protect the siblings, so that usually younger siblings, so that they're not affected by this chaos. And so what often occurs in someone who grows up in that kind of environment is they will feel that the weight of the world is on their shoulders, that they have to do everything. And often that was true early on, because when you're that young, you want to stay safe. You want to keep the home system together, because if it breaks apart, there's a risk of death at that little age. So healing this stuff, healing this dysregulation, and coming to terms with our lack of inability to take care of ourselves because we've had to take care of something else for so long, takes time, but it also is essential if we want to get out of that sort of spin cycle of never listening to our system. Because in that situation, in that scenario with the kiddo that I just kind of gave you right now, the last thing that that little one is doing is taking care of themselves, because they're trying to take care of the chaotic environment. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that that gives a little bit of insight into that. Oh, and Oz said, I also have Raynaud's IBS apart from heavy PMS. So yeah, so that makes sense. Understand that those are symptoms of an underlying root issue, which is dysregulation of the nervous system. And the medical way that we deal with those things is to deal with them separately. And sometimes we might need to take some of the pain and ease some of the symptoms. And if we don't get under and work at this intense dysregulation, it's like we're going to be trying to chase things separately, but really we want to just have it all be worked with from this deep level. So thanks for bringing that in. That makes complete sense. So for those of you listening, I'll repeat this question from Oz. They affirm that they have these other syndromes. So pain syndrome, IBS, which is the bowels, it all connects to the nervous system being dysregulated. Did a video, gosh, almost 4 or 5 years ago. I'm a heck of a lot younger. I have no gray hair in that video, but I have a graph and I'm drawing what I just described. It's called how, I think it's how traumatic stress creates chronic illness. So we can pop that up if you haven't watched that already. Okay. Going to go to one more question here on this page, and then I'll get to some of the questions that I saw on the comment board. Let me have a little more tea. Oh, I think I already answered this. Just a second, you guys. Alexandria, maybe you're the same Alex, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're not, but your questions are the same. So this is a bit eerie. So I had to just check. I think I may have answered this question already, but you say, I'm very afraid of the sensations of freeze and dissociation. Surely then it is helpful to track and to try and track the scary sensations, such as fixed eyes and still and constricted body when I'm in this state. What I'm asking is, will tracking this scary frozen state in this way gradually help to lessen it? It feels harmful to just bypass the scary frozen sensations and try to orient straight away. Or another way of putting it, is it necessary to become less afraid of the frozen state in particular in order to resolve it? So it is a different question, but it follows to the other things I've been answering. So I hope that you are here or you're listening to the whole chat today. But you're right, so there's two things. Freeze only becomes problematic. So the freeze response of the parasympathetic that puts us into kind of that shutdown, frozen state, it only becomes problematic when we have fear attached to it, when we're afraid of it. In the animal kingdom, when we go into a freeze state, typically we either die because we get eaten. That's, let's face it, that's usually why an animal will go into a deep shutdown state, as they're about to become dinner for another animal that's higher above them. If that animal doesn't get eaten and the animal trying to prey on them gets distracted, and there's a great video of a cheetah chasing an impala, so we'll post that up here if Crystal, you can find it. If that animal gets distracted and the animal that went into shutdown can get away, they go from a state of complete shutdown and poof, up and out. There's no fear attached to that in that biological animal. It's like, it's complete survival. It's what the system automatically goes into. Here's where humans have a harder time with this. We have a higher brain, a prefrontal cortex up here that is damn important. It wouldn't be able to show up here and listen to me and write and communicate and cook food and all the things that we do as human creatures, human beings, but that higher brain can trap us into more trouble with our freeze responses because we analyze them, we get afraid of them. Just like working with anger with some people, it isn't as easy as just saying, I want you to scream and start to throw your fists in the air and get angry. If we have a connection to anger and a memory that anger was scary, that anger hurt us, or that we never saw anger express, we can't just get that anger out because we may be afraid of our biological birthright to be angry. So you see where this gets a little tricky is we have to kind of pull apart biology from behavior, or from our brain, essentially, biology from our brain. So it is important to track the freeze and to try not to be afraid of it. And this is where, coming back to the basic principles that I teach in some of my audio lessons, and also in my online programs, Alexandria, work to help you to stay connected to the body, to the environment, while experiencing that freeze response. And it takes practice, because we do not want to go deeper into the freeze, and we don't want to go into more hyper arousal and overwhelm. We want to let it move and be felt. And essentially, we will come out of that if we cannot attach our mind and our fear to it, added fear, right? So it's important to know your body, to listen to the body, and to also realize that how our system is responding to these practices will be very different with different people. A lot of people ask, how do I know if I'm healing? And I'll often say, well, it might be that you're still going into these freezy states or hyperarousal states, but are your bowel movements improving? Is your immune system improving? Is it easier to breathe? Is it easier to connect to people? Are you finding that you're becoming more productive and your mind isn't trapping you into self-sabotage and resistance? So again, this comes back to the very first thing I said over an hour ago when I started, is that the autonomic nervous system is not one thing. It isn't just survival. It is also our behavior, our relationships, our emotions, our clarity in mind. So one of the ways to know that we're doing the right work, if we're working with these freeze responses, is are other things in our life improving. And by life, I don't just mean career and relationship, but like I said, how do we, are we taking care of ourselves in different ways? Do we have a little bit more spark for exploration, curiosity, etc.? And yeah, we don't want to get paralyzed by this either. That was a follow-up. We have to understand that we can't stay in it indefinitely, because when we stay in it indefinitely, that puts the system into shutdown, and then all the systems just start to slow down. You know, babies who are not connected to and attended to, and we saw this in a lot of the orphanage studies that were done. I can't quote them off the top of my head, but they're out there. A lot of them occurred in Romania. I'm sure other places too, but babies will die if they're just put into shutdown and no one's there, because the system can't handle that deep, deep shutdown. All systems slow down. Us as bigger people, we have a bit more resource, a bit more robustness to keep going, even in the face of extreme shutdown. But as one of our persons here, Oz, said, when we're in that, that's when the body breaks down into these syndromes, into these symptoms, and then we get unwell. Okay. We're doing good, you guys. I'm going to get to the, let me have a bit more water. I'm just going to scroll for those of you that are listening to this on YouTube after the fact, because we put this up onto YouTube. Yes, this will be available later. So anytime I do a live stream here on Facebook, granted Facebook continues to work, it records it, the replay is up after the fact, and then I also take the video and I put it up onto my YouTube channel, which in my experience is a nicer way to watch, because there's just less distraction often. Okay. So this was a question from one of my students in the 21-day nervous system tune-up. So Dan asks, when I try to exercise, I have a very hard time recovering. I seem to get locked into fight or flight mode, and it lasts for days. I can't fall asleep at night, have breathing problems, anxiety. It's very frustrating because I know I need to exercise. I seem to react in a similar way to stressful situations as well. Okay, this makes sense. So Dan, I don't know your history. I don't need to know the history, but I'll speak to this generally. So yes, 100% exercise is important. Bottom line, we need to be physically active. We need to tax our cardiovascular system, our respiratory system. Our muscle mass is super important for aging well and long. I did an article, it was a video on this a little while ago, on exercise. So I'm going to post that. If you haven't watched that, be sure to do that because there'll be some tips in there too. Now, if we have got a history of going, of dysregulation, of trapped traumatic stress, even of adrenal fatigue, the system will not want more intensity because it's already ramped up. And again, I don't know your specific situation, but let's just assume there's some survival stress, fight in there, and there's a freeze response also playing into this. And so in this moment in time, which might be very hard, it might be that you need to back off on the intensity so that the system can recover a little bit of its resources. It's possible, and again, I'm generalizing, that your system is inching its way towards the end of one of the first phases of adrenal fatigue, where we're ramped, where we're going, where we still have quite a bit of resource left in our kidneys and adrenals to pump out cortisol and adrenaline. And so we're pushing the body with this exercise, and it feels good, but the system, it's like it gets hooked. I just had this image of a hook. It gets hooked up into activation and sympathetic, and it's like it's trying to squeeze out the last bits of adrenaline, and it's just going. And we run the risk, if we keep pushing this, that sooner or later the system's going to go into the second phase of adrenal fatigue. That's how I call it, at least, which is complete and utter shutdown, where we go from this, like you said, this high level of stimulus, can't sleep, high activation, but then the system goes shoo. It's like if you imagine, those movies where you see the city is all lit up. Usually happens in like superpower movies, and then all of a sudden the villain like kills the power and New York City just goes silent and dead. That's kind of what occurs with adrenal fatigue situations. Is we're going, things are revving, it feels great, but as you say, you're getting into this point where the cortisol can't come down. It's like it's been released so much, it's revving. And so it's important, I believe, to slow it down a little bit so that the system can recover and rest. And this doesn't mean that you won't be able to get back to your full intense workouts, but we want to make sure that the system has some time to recover. So what that might mean, and I did a video, article on this, and I actually have a webinar on adrenal fatigue. The article is called The 2 Stages of Adrenal Fatigue, so be sure to check that out. It's a long article, but it's very important. And then the webinar is an older webinar, but I talk everyone through what it means, so maybe check that out. So I would suggest, Dan, as much as it's going to tax your psyche, back it off a little bit. Still do some cardio. If you're lifting weights, cut it down. If you're lifting it, and I know I have a degree in exercise science, you guys. I was in fitness for 12 years, so that's why I'm able to speak to this. So technical terms, if you're lifting weights at 80, even 70%, I know this is going to sound horrible, back it off to 50% just to maintain the tendon strength, the ligament strength. Yeah, you won't be able to build the muscle and keep the strength, but it will come back. I've broken bones. I've been in crutches for months at a time. where you lose all your muscle mass, but the moment the system recovers and you start to build again, it comes back really quickly. So back it all off by like 40% or something that will feel like you're maybe doing nothing, but you're still getting the movements in. Back the cardiovascular down so that you're letting the system still move, but not taxing the adrenals, right? It's about not taxing the adrenals. So no high intensity interval training, no massive hikes with backpacks on your back, getting the cardio up, still move, but back it off. And don't double the time. So I've just said cut back 50%. Because you've cut back 50%, don't add another hour onto it. And this will test your psyche, and just know that it's like taking a dose of antibiotics. I mean, I use that really loosely, but it's a way to let the system recover. Imagine those kidneys right now, because you can't sleep. It's very anxiety producing. They're pumping out. They're trying to keep you alive and survive. That's my sense, my hunch. And you gotta lasso that in before they completely poop out and say, time's up, dude. Body says no, and then it'll just crash. So not to scare, but my hunch is bring it back, lessen it, still move, breathe air, keep your lungs working, keep the joints working, but take the intensity down. How long you need to do that will be really dependent on your system. And also recognizing the underlying pieces of traumatic events that might be being hidden under that drive, that high intensity drive that you're probably really good at. So being someone who knew how to push big time in an exercise capacity, it's hard. And think of the long term. Think of the rest of your organs. Think of the stress on your heart by it not being able to rest at night, the immune system, the endocrine system, all these systems, they need to rest, and you're not getting the rest. So try that out. Let us know how it goes. Okay. I'm going to go a little bit longer, guys. So this is from Tina. And you say, I notice often humming and singing weird tunes and songs when I'm anxious and probably trying to calm myself down. Often some stupid non-meaning words pop up and they merge with some little melody, usually annoying ones. These things feel more like they're doing more dissociation and anxious than calming. Any thoughts? Should I make myself stop, or is that my system's way to get something out? Really hard to form a decent question about this. This makes complete sense, Tina. And fascinatingly enough, the video that Crystal posted from the grandmother, the elder grandmother from Australia, talking about what we need to do right now in the current time, but it's not just now, you guys, it's all the time, but to stay grounded and to stay in flow. She actually mentioned humming, letting hums come out, letting sounds come out. It doesn't matter what the sound is. I mean, you could play with the sound of music, the, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, all those things that you could hum. It could be a song. It could be pretending that you're a bee. It could be sounding like a bird, a crow. So sound and expression is 100% awesome because it's getting something out of the system. And your system is following what we call the impulse, the biological impulse. So, and you say there's non-meaning words. That's cool too. We forget as humans that when we were really young, we spoke in gobbledygook. We spoke in baby language. It was a way to form and to make sound and to connect. So it is not, unless, and you say it feels like they're doing more dissociation, you have to be the judge of that. So the question is when you are doing this, are you staying connected to the ground? Are you staying connected to the environment? Are you able to stay connected to that sound? Can you feel that sound and what it's doing? Again, human society has screwed us up when it comes to full human biological expression. And we are animals and we're also human, and there's a difference. Human beings have this insane intelligent brain and, dare I say, engineering in our DNA that doesn't make us just human. And so, you know, there are videos of people speaking in tongues, of going off on these weird gobbledygook chants, and almost looks like we're possessed. And while we don't want to bypass the emotion and what's being felt, we actually have the capacity to express a lot of different sounds and languages. I am amazed when I listen to other languages. I have a student of mine who is Swedish, and I cannot understand a word of Swedish, but I love listening to her Instagram stories and shares where she talks, because I just listen to the sound and it's almost like music to my ears, because it's so different than English, and nothing can be comprehended, but it feels so cool to listen to that. So use the sounds, let them come out, but also connect it to the emotion and what you might be feeling. Okay. Also know that when we make sound, we're tapping into what's called the social engagement part of our nervous system. It's part of our ventral vagal branch of our parasympathetic nervous system. I mentioned the polyvagal theory in another a moment ago. There's a video where I talk about that. Again, the hallmark of mammals is that we can communicate via sound. We communicate via different tones of our voice, right? We have to have change in our voice. Someone who is trapped in a survival stress mechanism will sound very monotone. They won't be interesting to listen to. There'll be just this dullness to their sound. I'm acting now, you guys, right? So you can't connect to a baby like that. You can't even connect to a person like that. God only knows in university, it was hard to listen to the professors who had no capacity to shift their voice and change what's called the prosody of how they speak. And so when we hum, when we sing, we have these different melodies, different harmonies that shift that part of our social engagement. And so it's very important to know that we need to express. Okay, next question. So this is, I've kind of already answered this. This is from, again, our Facebook group from Kamali. And it's a question about healing hormonal, women's hormonal issues. And you mentioned something called AMH, and I will admit I had to look that up, but it's a hormone produced by the ovarian follicles. It's anti-Mullerian hormone. I studied reproductive biology, and I don't remember that one. So it's a hormone produced by ovarian follicles. And so it looks like you've been diagnosed with ovarian failure and very high FSH, which is follicular stimulating hormone. I do know that one. And this low AMH. And you said, I read separately that AMH was depleted by trauma, and I have had some in the past with being a suicide survivor and having been raped within previous relationships. So again, I'll make this contextual to everything we're talking about here. The history, there's a lot of strain, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of held fight-flight energy, especially due to the assault that you say that you've survived and endured. So it's important to understand, again, that our autonomic nervous system connects to our hormonal organ systems. And sometimes when the area in question where the trauma and the impact was close to those organs, the ovarian, the ovaries, I should say, the fallopian tubes, the uterus, all of the reproductive organs, those areas will have not just a physical hit, but an energetic hit. They will have been, damaged, not just physically, but energetically, spiritually. And so, again, I think it's important to have medical advice with this, very important, but also underlying that is this intense, no doubt, fear, this intense horror, this intense threat that your system had to go into. And so it'll be very important, at least from my opinion, to work on these past traumatic stressors, work on really feeling the need to survive, to be alive, to heal, and most importantly, to feel that you deserve it. One of the hardest things, and it's getting a little easier as I progress in my work with my students and clients, but when we've had a lot of traumatic stress early on, and I don't want to make assumptions, but I'll assume that there was potentially trauma and adversity before some of these events that you talked about, Shamali, family stress, ancestral trauma, not being able to express who you are, not being able to feel safe in your cells and in your skin. When we've had that occur, the system is going to be under a lot of strain. It's going to be under a lot of intensity. And so it's very important to understand that we need to get our system booted up. We need to bring the life force energy back to our existence. For something like this, healthy aggression and working with our anger is super important. And if our system isn't ready for working with healthy aggression, we need to do the foundational building blocks to get the capacity on board so that we can express healthy aggression, so that we can express our anger and our rage, so that we can feel the horror and the terror that was going on while these events were occurring. This funnels back to what I talked about at the very beginning about feeling intensity, feeling the memories, the sensations, but not dissociating from them to the point where we don't even know what's happening anymore. So the overarching theme for you in this question and anybody else struggling with this, it comes back to restoring resiliency, regulation, and capacity to the system and safety to the system. Very, very important. All right, I'm going to come back to the comments here. Okay, just scrolling, you guys. So I know that there were some questions that came in from Instagram. I will not get to those today. What I'll do is I will save those for next week when I come back to answer some basic questions, and I'll come back into the comments. I do not do private sessions. I do not do phone sessions, Skype sessions, and private sessions anymore. I stopped my private practice. It's on a permanent hold while I facilitate and run my online programs, namely Smart Body, Smart Mind. This is something that we just started. We're in the 4th week. It's a 3-month program that is also a lifetime membership. So if you are interested in that, we'll run that again next year, but you don't have to wait until next year to get in. You can start with what's called my 21-day nervous system tune-up. This is a course that was curated from Smart Body, Smart Mind so that folks who want to start this work with me, who want to dive into the practices, building foundation, building capacity, learning more about the nervous system, because there's a lot more than what I talk about in these chats. If you want to actually do some apprenticeship with me, check out that program. Of course, it's paid, but it's a comprehensive course. There's a Facebook group privately just for that, where 3 of my amazing colleagues, Elia, Seth, and Nicole, are in there answering questions. They're trained in nervous system work. So it's a really lovely way to get started. So no, I'm not doing any private work, not at this point in time. The other way that I do work with people in person is through my groups. My group workshop's called Up and Down. We mentioned that at the beginning. So those are on hold until probably this coming fall. I will be in, fingers crossed, in Stockholm and in London teaching with my colleague and teaching partner Elia Marak, our workshops. So I'm just going to get to a question here from just, I'm not going to say this right. Giuseppina wants to know, can you help with tips on helping ourselves verbalizing and being firm with our boundaries when we feel the need in our physical systems, but difficulties in expressing it? Hope that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. It's everything I've been talking about. So again, I just talked about moving language and sound out. Boundaries fall into that. But again, when there's a difficulty, it means that our system doesn't feel quite safe yet. There's not enough capacity on board. So we have to, again, I sound like a broken record, but it's true. We have to build the basic building blocks, the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s of nervous system language. And so it comes back down to building capacity. And again, I've seen my students who go into this work say, holy cow, my anxiety is going down, I'm sleeping better, but I'm also able to speak up differently. How does that come into play? And it comes back into play with the fact that the autonomic nervous system, it connects to our social engagement system. It is part of our social engagement system. So the safer we feel, the more connected we feel to ourselves, the more aggression, healthy aggression we can express, the more we're able to verbalize. But again, it's not like something that just happens in the blink of a day or a week. We need to rebuild this up, especially if we were not allowed to speak up when we were little. Catherine says, I'm terrified that unresolved stuff means something I have no idea exists, like a repressed memory, is going to come out and throw me into even more disarray. Is this a normal fear? Does this mean there is a major thing lurking in there? It might be, Catherine. It also might not be. And here's the thing. Again, broken record, Irene, again, when we build capacity, when we build the ability to stay contained in our body with any emotion, sensation, memory, experience, interaction, when that memory comes up, it's going to be not a big deal. Yes, we will feel the survival energy that was attached to that memory when it got repressed, but when we've done the education, when we've done the work to stay in our bodies, in the good and in the bad, when that intense memory comes up, yes, there might be grief. Yes, there might be intense pain, sadness, tears, anger, rage, but we'll know that it's coming out because it's ready, and that means we're healing. Guys, remember, when we bring something up and out and we stay connected and contained, it means that we are taking toxicity out of our systems. And when we can take that out of our systems, we open up space in our body for not only less illness to happen, but more creativity, more love, more joy. So be very, very aware that we want to feel and express and get the repression and the memories that have been stored. And sometimes there might not be any. It might be, the sense of there was just a lot of unsafety growing up, and there is no specific memory, just the memory of I was never safe. Mom and dad didn't know how to care for me. They never hit me. They never abused me. They fed me. They clothed me. But there's this overwhelming sense of no one is there for me. That is another form of trauma that is actually trickier to pinpoint because there's no actual event. There's no actual thing that we can say, that's what happened. That's what happened. And for many of us, that's going to be the case, which is, again, broken record Irene comes out again. We have to build our capacity to be with anything that comes up because we cannot predict. It is irresponsible for people who do this work, people who are in the industry, to say, oh, you just have to go through these steps. You just have to do this when you feel this. This means that. That sensation means this. Pain, this area means you had that kind of trauma. It's not true. And this is why, again, my interest is to teach you guys how to really listen and learn to become an apprentice of your biology, of your nervous system. I like to say become your own medicine is very important. So if you have not yet started this apprenticeship and you want to begin this apprenticeship, now is a very good time to start. Again, I have a lot of free resources on my website. Check those out. And if you're ready to kind of take that next step and do a bit more informed, a bit more dedicated, concentrated work with me and my team, be sure to check out the 21-day nervous system tune-up. Yes, it is a paid program. And what you get within those 21 days, the curriculum you have for life, doesn't just end. You can keep redoing the course over and over again. And there's a way that you can pay it over time, and it's a way to get into this work. I really think if you've got these questions and you know you're struggling with some of the things that we've talked about today, know that these things do not heal with time. They will not heal with just calming down the nerves and breathing through it. If anything, we're going to start to feel more of these symptoms come up as our global society wakes up a little bit more, and I can guarantee you we are waking up right now. So I hope that you guys take this to heart, do what you can to start practicing. I'll come back next week with some more Q&A. Like I said, I've got some questions here that I didn't get to, and just know that we all have the capacity to heal. We have to believe that we can heal, and we have to believe that we deserve it. And that is a key component. Ground yourself right now, connect to Mother Earth, connect to the good that is still happening in our world, connect to the good that you have got. If it's as simple as realizing you have two hands that can still bathe you and feed you, connect to those simple things. Enjoy your movements, enjoy your body, let yourself express what needs to be expressed. Thank you for being here. We still have about 53 people online. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for pressing play after the fact. If you're watching this on Facebook after the fact, thank you. For those of you that have stuck around for nearly an hour and 45 minutes, thanks for being troopers and hanging out. Thanks, Crystal, for popping up all the resources. Again, if you guys went through all of those resources, it would be like a mini workshop. So if you want to put some focus and time into learning a little bit more through my other resources, they are all there for you to click on and check out. It'll take a second or two for this video to turn over to be processed. Thanks for all the hearts. And it's Thursday today, so if it's Thursday where you are, happy Thursday. If it's a different day, enjoy your evening or your morning or wherever you are. And you're very welcome, everyone saying thank you. All right, I'm going to sign off, and we'll see you later. Bye for now.